Okay. So today we're doing a deep dive into something pretty intense. Imagine a scheme, right? Just huge, incredibly complicated. We're talking alleged staged accidents, unnecessary surgeries, even manipulating financial markets.
Yeah, it's quite the picture painted in this legal complaint we've been looking at.
Yeah.
It was filed by Union Mutual Fire Insurance Company.
Right.
And it really lays out accusations against this massive network. It's not just one or two players. You've got law firms, medical providers, funding companies, all sorts of support groups allegedly involved.
And this isn't just any lawsuit. It's a civil action under RICO, the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act.
Exactly. RICO. That's significant.
It really is. For anyone maybe not familiar, RICO is this powerful federal law. It was originally meant for taking down organized crime, essentially.
Right, the mob and outfits like that.
Yeah. It lets prosecutors go after individuals in an ongoing enterprise, that's the key word, involved in a pattern of illegal stuff. And in a civil case, like this one, it lets victims, like Union Mutual here, sue for potentially huge damages, often triple damages.
Terrible, yeah.
So the complaint alleges this really wide-ranging, ongoing fraudulent scheme. Union Mutual claims it's harmed them directly, and, by extension, it harms the public too.
And our whole deep dive today, it's based entirely on this one legal document, this complaint.
Which gives us this kind of unique behind-the-scenes look at how an operation like this is allegedly put together and run.
So our mission really is to unpack all these layers, understand the supposed playbook they used, figure out who the key players are alleged to be.
And uncover some of the details that are frankly pretty surprising. Shocking, even. We want to bring those out for you.
Definitely.
So let's start at the beginning. How does something like this allegedly get off the ground? The complaint talks about what it calls a tired scheme, basically.
It all sounds routine, doesn't it? Stage a fall, or maybe just make one up entirely.
Right.
Then overtreat the supposed injuries, and then, boom, a lawsuit.
Seems straightforward enough, sadly. But this complaint says it evolved way beyond that.
That's the fascinating part, yeah. It's the alleged evolution and scale. It's not just about individual lawsuits anymore, apparently.
Yeah.
The system described, it's designed so participants can allegedly get direct profit out of it through things like E-trade. Like before any lawsuit even settles.
Wait, really? So they're not even waiting for the settlement. They're getting money out sooner.
That's the allegation. They've apparently found ways to liquefy the potential future payout. It makes the whole thing less risky for those involved,
Wow. Okay.
And the infrastructure they allegedly built to support this, it's described as massive, operating on a scale, and I quote, never before seen.
Never before seen. That's a huge claim. And who's supposedly running this massive operation?
Well, the complaint points fingers directly at the Subin firm. It calls them the center of this fraud scheme.
The Subin firm? Okay.
Yeah.
They have that slogan, right? $3 billion recovered.
That's the one. And the complaint really zeroes in on that number, $3 billion. They contrast it with other big fraud cases, like the Calcani's trip and fall case, that was like $31 million.
Okay.
Or a big no-fault insurance scheme, maybe $275 million.
So $3 billion compared to those? It's just a completely different league.
Exactly. It suggests something operating on, a whole other level of alleged scale and audacity.
And it's not just them acting alone, according to this.
No, not at all. The complaint alleges other law firms like Clay M. Evols basically acted as extensions, maybe to get around conflicts of interest, or maybe act as a buffer, to hide referrals to non-lawyers.
A buffer, right.
Gary S. Park's firm is also named as like another channel or conduit in this network.
Okay, so we've got the Subin firm allegedly at the core, other firms acting as extensions. What about inside the Subin firm itself?
Yeah, the complaint names a Jose Hernandez, described as a manager there. And he allegedly owns and runs a whole bunch of these Wall Street named companies. Wall Street Transportation, Wall Street Investigations, Clerical, Calendar Services, even Wall Street Check Cashing.
Wall Street Check?
Yeah, and the complaint notes that one allegedly doesn't even have a valid license. And these entities, they supposedly operate right out of the Subin firm's own office space, like a 14th floor support services office.
So they're inside the firm's building?
Allegedly, yes.
Yeah.
And they supposedly build the Subin firm for legal support services.
Yeah.
Things like finding these runners, providing transport, doing investigations.
It sounds like a completely self-contained ecosystem they allegedly built.
That's exactly the picture painted. Which leads us to the next layer, the alleged enablers. The runners and the support defendant.
The runners, these are the people actually staging the accidents or finding people to claim injuries.
That's the idea. And the complaint names Jorge Lupi as a known runner for Subin. His company, a Medico Legal, allegedly went after undocumented immigrants specifically, lured them in with promises of quick cash from these litigation funders.
Oh, the funders again.
And, the promise of a big payout down the line if they played along.
And where was he operating from?
Allegedly, right out of the law offices of Gary S. Park. Remember, the firm named as a conduit.
Right, connecting the dots.
And Lupi apparently pretended to be a lawyer sometimes, even impersonated workers' comp adjusters, all while feeding cases to the Subin firm.
Wow. And did he make money doing this?
The complaint alleges he personally pocketed nearly $2 million in broker fees just for this.
$2 million just in fees for allegedly fraudulent referrals. That's staggering.
It is. And there are others mentioned too, like Tanvir Chaudhry, linked to Sahiwal Associates and Tri-State Medical Liaison Services. He's accused of managing runner networks and laundering money.
So you've got the alleged legal masterminds, the recruiters on the ground. But an operation like this, it needs fuel, right? It needs money to keep going.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that brings us to the funding defendants. The complaint calls them the grease in the scheme's wheels.
The grease. Okay. So they're providing the cash.
Yeah. They allegedly give out these high-interest litigation funding loans to the claimants. But here's a really key detail.
What's that?
Sometimes the payment, the loan itself, is allegedly contingent on undergoing surgery.
Wait. You only get the money if you agree to have surgery.
That's what the complaint alleges in some cases. And they're careful, apparently, not to call them loans. That could run into problems with usury laws, illegally high interest rates.
Right.
So instead, they're structured creatively as an ownership interest or an investment in the potential future lawsuit winnings.
That sounds legally complex.
It is. And this is where the really sophisticated financial stuff allegedly comes in. They don't just make these individual advances.
Okay.
They package them up. Bundle hundreds of these potential lawsuit payouts together.
Like mortgage-backed securities almost, that kind of idea.
Kind of, yeah. They cross-collateralize them, turn them into securities, financial products.
Wow.
Things like debt instruments, secured notes, pooled investment funds. And then they sell these packages.
Sell them to who?
To bigger players. Investment firms, even registered mutual funds. Pegasus and Case Cash are specifically named as doing this.
So hold on. Allegedly fraudulent lawsuit claims are being bundled up and sold into the mainstream financial market, possibly ending up in mutual funds that, ordinary people invest in.
That's the explosive allegation here. It's a way to get big money involved, make the whole thing seem legitimate, and make it much, much harder to trace the money back to the alleged fraud at the source.
That is next level. And Neil Magnus is mentioned here.
Yes, Neil Magnus, associated with Best Case Originations and an entity called RLSPV. And his RLSPV allegedly made its way into an actual institutional-grade mutual fund.
Which one?
The Variant Alternative Income Fund, ticker NICHX. The complaint says the fund actually increased its investment in RLSPV by about 300% at one point.
300% increase into an entity allegedly built on these lawsuit advances.
Right. And the complaint argues this structure just completely hides the connection to the alleged fraud. It's obscured.
And Magnus has other connections, too.
Yeah, the complaint notes he co-owns a patent with Hobart Subin related to medical records.
With Subin himself, okay.
And his software, MedTRX, is allegedly used by some of the medical providers involved in the scheme. It ties the funding directly to the medical side.
So it's all interconnected. Then there's Gregory Eleftherakis.
Right, a disbarred attorney.
Yeah.
He's identified as owning or operating PSC liaisons and Case Cash, another funder we mentioned.
Okay.
He's accused flat out of wire fraud for allegedly moving money between his own companies, Case Cash and PSC, under false pretenses. Just shuffling money from himself to himself, basically.
And there's a political angle alleged, too.
Yes, the complaint alleges he made political donations to a district attorney race and also to sitting New York State Supreme Court justices.
Why would he do that?
The complaint suggests it was maybe an attempt to curry political favor, and maybe insulate the whole alleged fraud scheme from scrutiny.
Oh. Okay, so we have the legal side, the runners, the incredibly complex funding. What about the medical part? You mentioned providers.
Crucial component. The medical provider defendants. They allegedly steer the claimants to specific doctors and clinics who have an agreement or understanding about the scheme.
So they know what findings are needed?
That's the allegation. To facilitate predetermined findings, unnecessary treatments, overtreatment, basically.
The complaint names here, too.
Oh, yeah. Dr. Kevin H. Weiner is one. He's described as a licensed MD, but he's under a stayed suspension.
Stayed suspension. What does that mean?
It means his suspension is on hold, but he has strict and extensive limitations from the Department of Health, including, and this is specific, being permanently precluded from prescribing controlled substances or performing surgical, interventional, or invasive treatments. And the order specifically says that includes injections.
No injections allowed. Got it.
Yet, the complaint says he keeps marketing himself as specializing in workers' comp, and injections are listed as his primary marketed treatment.
That seems like a direct violation of his restrictions.
It certainly appears that way, based on the complaint. Then there's Dr. Albert J. Ciancimino, an 82-year-old gastroenterologist.
A stomach doctor.
Yes, but he's allegedly held out to be the provider for some of these pain management or ortho-type clinics.
Huh, okay.
And Dr. Sanford R. Wirt, he apparently testified in court that he did surgery on patients he admittedly did not believe to be surgical candidates.
He admitted that in court.
That's what the complaint alleges, quoting court testimony.
And what about imaging? MRIs and things?
Ah, yes. Dr. Thomas Kolb of Kolb Radiology. The complaint uses some pretty strong language here, calls him the MRI provider of choice for those that wish to conjure an injury into existence.
Wow, conjure an injury.
It alleges his reports consistently contradict later independent peer reviews, like they omit obvious degenerative conditions, things people get just from aging.
Right.
And instead, they allegedly manufacture findings of traumatic injuries, like tears, that weren't really there.
So the whole medical process is allegedly compromised from the start.
That's the claim. A rote protocol, complaint calls it, unnecessary diagnostic tests first, relying on these allegedly fraudulent imaging reports from places like Kolb's,
right?
Using that to justify months of physical therapy, injections,
right,
which then becomes the excuse for surgery, predetermined surgery.
And these surgeries, where are they happening?
Often across state lines. New Jersey comes up a lot.
Why New Jersey?
The complaint alleges this potentially violates the Federal Travel Act, using interstate facilities to carry out illegal activities. And these surgeries are often paid for by the litigation funders.
Even if the patient has insurance, like Medicaid or Medicare.
Exactly. Even when they have coverage, the funders allegedly pay, potentially linking the surgery payment directly back to the scheme. It's a really intricate web they describe.
It really is. Maybe the best way to understand how all these pieces allegedly fit together is to look at some of the specific cases mentioned in the complaint. The playbook in action.
Definitely. These examples really bring the alleged patterns to life.
Let's start with claimant A. This is the one the complaint calls the dress on fire accident. Sounds memorable.
It is memorable and pretty illustrative of the alleged contradictions. So, claimant A supposedly reports a trip and fall in January 2022. Standard stuff.
Okay.
But here's the catch. The Subin firm itself, her lawyers, provided her primary care physician records from just 5 days later.
And what did those say?
The reason for that doctor visit, she caught her dress on fire from a candle she had lit. No mention of any fall whatsoever.
Wait, so the firm representing her for a fall allegedly had records in their own file showing a completely different incident, a dress fire, just days later.
Exactly. The complaint argues this means the Subin firm knew about the contradiction, but went ahead with the fall claim anyway.
That's pretty damning if true. What about the medical side for her?
Well, Kolb Radiology did MRIs, allegedly claiming multiple tears. But then an independent peer review found only degenerative fraying and severe osteoarthritis, wear and tear.
Right, not an acute injury from a fall.
And despite this, and her documented history of mental health issues and drug use, a surgeon named Dr. Galina allegedly recommended major surgery, a lumbar fusion, on her very first visit.
First visit, lumbar fusion.
Yes. And maybe a cervical fusion, too, if conservative treatment, like, get this, Pilates and Urdo yoga didn't work.
Pilates and yoga as the prelude to spinal fusion.
That's the alleged recommendation. And later, at her deposition, she was shown photos of the supposed accident scene with the hazards circled.
Did she recognize it?
She reportedly said she had no idea who took the photograph or who made the circle. It just raises more questions.
It certainly does. Okay, what's another example? Claimant Sosa. This involves dates not adding up.
Yes, this one highlights the alleged pre-planning or staging. So, Edgardo Juan Sosa. Funding paperwork for his case was dated June 28, 2021. And the accident supposedly happened just before that, June 23, 2021.
Seems tight, but possible.
But his power of attorney form, the document giving his lawyers, including defendant Baum from the Subin firm, the right to act for him,
yeah,
that was signed, notarized and dated May 25, 2021.
May 25th. That's almost a month before the accident supposedly even happened on June 23rd.
Exactly. How do you give power of attorney for an accident that hasn't occurred yet?
You can't, logically.
And it gets even more specific. The funding document itself, the best case advance, dated June 28th.
Yeah.
The complaint details the metadata from the electronic file.
Oh, the hidden data in the file. What did it show?
It showed the document was created by scanning it on June 12, 2021.
June 12th. That's 11 days before the supposed accident date of June 23rd.
Precisely. The complaint presents this as just undeniable proof that the accident was planned, staged, well in advance. The paperwork existed before the event it described.
That's incredible. Just blatant if the metadata is accurate.
It's pretty stark. Then there's the case of Leslie Ortiz. This one is sad, focusing on alleged overtreatment of a young person.
How young?
She was 23. In 2020, the Subin firm allegedly started representing her.
Yeah.
And 17 of her friends and family members.
17. All related.
Friends and family, yeah. And supposedly all living in the same apartment in Manhattan.
Okay. That sounds unusual in itself.
It does. And Ms. Ortiz, at 23, with litigation financing involved, was allegedly pushed into getting 2 spinal fusions.
2. At 23, that's major surgery.
Extremely major. Done by Dr. Gerling. And she stated on the record, in court, that the Subin firm sent her to Dr. Gerling.
And what happened after the surgeries?
She later told the court something quite heartbreaking. She said she was actually a Medicaid recipient.
Okay.
But Dr. Gerling refuses to see me unless I have a lawyer. He refuses to give me medication.
Wow.
She said, I only allowed my doctor to convince me to have surgery when he said, you are going to feel better. And I agreed. But I feel worse.
Oh, that's awful. She feels worse after 2 fusions at 23.
It really underscores the alleged human cost here. It's not just about money.
No, clearly not. What about the case involving an imposter? Carlos Enrique Ramirez Naranjo.
Right. This one involves alleged identity theft. So, October 2022, Subin firm files a complaint. Says Mr. Ramirez Naranjo got hurt on a job site.
Okay.
But Mr. Ramirez Naranjo himself later stated he never had that injury. He said he was told he was just filling out a job application in English, which he didn't speak.
A job application.
Yeah. And he was told he'd get $15,000 for filling it out. He did get a check from a litigation finance company.
The funders again.
But then his friend, who helped him, allegedly took $13,000 of it, left him with just $2,000.
So he was tricked into signing something, got some money, but most was taken.
That's his claim. And then it gets weirder. Someone else, an imposter, allegedly went to physical therapy sessions using Mr. Ramirez Naranjo's ID.
But it wasn't him.
No, the ID had a picture of a different person on it.
What? How did the therapy place not notice?
Good question. But the complaint says the physical therapy facility's file had a Subin firm intake packet in it. And that packet had a phone number linked back to a medical loopy.
Loopy, the alleged runner.
The very same. And initially, defendant Baum from the Subin firm apparently confirmed the $15,000 came from best case funding and admitted a runner had set the whole thing up.
He admitted it.
According to the complaint, yes. But then later, the Subin firm apparently changed their story about what happened.
Okay, that's just layers upon layers of alleged deception. Are there more examples like this?
There are several more detailed in the complaint, showing similar patterns. Claimant F, for instance. Supposed trip and fall, but first responders noted non-trauma. Hospital discharged him in an hour with Advil. No objective indication of any injury.
Sounds minor.
But he ended up having extensive lumbar surgery by Dr. Gerling. A discography, discectomy, rhizotomy, annuloplasty, intradisc injection, a whole suite of procedures.
Wow. Was there any test showing he needed that?
An EMG test, meant to check for nerve damage or radiculopathy, actually came back normal. But the surgery allegedly went ahead anyway.
Unbelievable. Any other odd details?
Yeah, a couple. Dr. Gerling's institute records repeatedly listed this male patient as female and called him mistress.
Just clerical errors, maybe? Or something else?
Hard to say, but sloppy at best. Also, he needed an interpreter for his deposition, claimed he didn't speak English well.
Okay.
But hospital records from the day of his surgery explicitly stated he understood and spoke English. And he testified that another entity involved, Alboro, helped him with everything.
Contradictions everywhere. What about claimant G, the stage 4 cancer patient?
This one is also quite disturbing. A 70-year-old man, later 75, with stage 4 cancer, a history of cocaine trafficking, and previous knee replacements. A lot going on medically.
Definitely complex. What was his alleged accident?
A ceiling falling incident, but the hospital visit the next day noted only a small superficial scratch. Again, no evidence of trauma.
Minimal injury reported.
Yet Dr. Galena, same surgeon is in the dress on fire case, allegedly recommended 5 levels of spinal fusion. 2 in the neck, 3 in the lower back.
5 levels. For a stage 4 cancer patient with a scratch.
On the first visit, according to the complaint, without reviewing his full medical history, apparently, or considering his cancer status.
That seems medically questionable, to put it mildly.
Galena performed a 3-level cervical fusion on him. In New Jersey, again raising the Travel Act issue, the complaint alleges this was done purely for the financial benefit of the surgeon and his conspirators.
And connections are alleged there, too.
Yes, the surgery was at Hudson Regional Hospital, owned by Jan Moshe, who also owned Citamed Clinics, where Galena was affiliated. It suggests alleged links between the doctors and the surgical centers.
And the funding and software links.
His treatment, including billing by Allboro, allegedly used that MedTRX software system.
The one co-owned by Neil Magnus, the funder.
Exactly, linking the alleged overtreatment directly back to the funding defendant's infrastructure.
It's like a closed loop. One more. Claimant H, the probation patient.
Right. Claimant H lived in a shelter, used a burner phone number. Again, hospital diagnosis after an alleged incident was just generic muscle pain, full range of motion, no objective indication of injury.
Seeing a pattern here.
But a report from Dr. Weiner, the one with the stayed suspension and limitations.
Right, the injection issue.
His report apparently stated, quote, "The patient needs to continue working until he finishes probation before he can have the surgical intervention."
Wait, it actually said that. That surgery was planned, but had to wait for probation to end.
That's the quote in the complaint. It strongly suggests the surgery was already decided on, a predetermined conclusion, regardless of medical need.
And the imaging.
Cold radiology, again. Allegedly manufactured a fracture, an ACL tear, and an MCL tear on MRIs. Again, contradicted by later independent reviews.
And physical therapy. Was that legitimate?
The physical therapy records from 2 clinics, Urban Heights Medical and Best Care, were described as literally 16 copies of the same piece of paper with a different date.
16 copies. Identical.
Identical modalities listed, stamped signatures. It suggests no actual patient evaluation, no tracking of progress, just generating paperwork.
So, likely fake therapy to justify further treatment.
That's the strong implication. And he, too, eventually had surgery, left knee surgery in New Jersey, performed by a Dr. McCulloch, alleged again as a kickback and Travel Act violation. Funded, but interestingly, no UCC statement was filed for the funding.
Which might suggest trying to hide the funding aspect?
Could be. It's another piece of the puzzle. These examples, they just paint such a vivid picture of the alleged playbook.
They really do. And it seems like this wasn't static. The complaints suggest the scheme adapted, evolved over time.
Oh, definitely. It alleges the scheme is dynamic. For example, after getting warnings from other insurance companies about certain cases, the Subin firm apparently withdrew from several hundred live cases, specifically labor law cases. They cited a referral source concern, pointing back to Jorge Lupi, the runner.
So they backed off when they felt heat.
But the complaint argues this was by design, not to actually stop the alleged fraud, but just to pivot, to cycle to new ones.
Like shifting tactics.
Exactly. It alleges the firm continued engaging in precisely the same conduct and even further leaning in, just maybe shifting focus, bringing in new entities to handle slip and falls or motor vehicle accidents instead of the labor law cases.
So constantly adapting and still recruiting.
Apparently, yes. That joint venture, a Medico Lupi Justicia, allegedly involving Hernandez and the Subin firm, reportedly ramped up social media ads.
Advertising for what?
For legal advisors to identify and attract potential clients, still specifically targeting, allegedly, victims who were in the country illegally, but now maybe more for car accidents.
So the recruitment machine kept going, just maybe aimed differently.
That's the allegation. And even when Subin dropped cases, the scheme didn't stop.
What happened to those cases?
The complaint says many were just picked up by other lawyers, sometimes directly referred by the funders, like Best Case.
So the funders are placing the cases now.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
And people who used to work at Subin, described as paralegals and office managers involved in the alleged fraud, reportedly just moved over to these new law firms.
So the network just expands or shifts rather than shutting down.
Exactly. It suggests the enterprise just finds new outlets, even while one part, like Subin, might seem to be cleaning up shop. The complaint calls it business as usual.
business as usual.
Yeah.
That's quite chilling. So let's pull back a bit. What's the bigger picture here, the overall impact?
Well, the complaint talks about how this kind of alleged activity can really pollute the legal and medical professions, corrupt them from the inside,
Yeah.
and how it can pervert the courthouses away from their truth-finding function and into their own personal profit centers, basically using the justice system itself as a tool for fraud.
That's a fundamental attack on the system. And for Union Mutual, obviously, they're claiming direct damages, settlement payouts they shouldn't have made, huge legal costs, investigation costs.
Right. Significant direct financial harm to the company.
But what about the rest of us? What about you, the listener? How does something like this, if the allegations are true, ripple outwards?
That's a really important question. The complaint actually touches on this, citing media reports. It claims that losses from these kinds of schemes have apparently tripled since the pandemic began.
Tripled. That's a massive jump.
Huge. And that, according to these reports cited in the complaint, drives up the cost of living for everyone, particularly in places like New York.
How so?
It raises insurance premiums for cars, for businesses, for liability, across the board. If insurers are paying out more for fraudulent claims, they have to raise rates for everybody.
Okay, that makes sense. Higher insurance costs for all of us.
And it can also inflate costs in specific sectors, like construction and housing. If developers face higher insurance and litigation costs due to alleged fraud, those costs get passed on in the price of buildings and rent.
So it's not just the insurance company losing money. It allegedly ends up costing average people more to live, to drive, to rent an apartment.
That's the broader impact suggested. It's a hidden tax, essentially, imposed by alleged systemic fraud.
So we've really peeled back the layers today on this alleged sprawling operation, from the nuts and bolts of the financial engineering
Right. The securitization, the mutual funds.
to the really shocking details in some of those individual cases we discussed.
Yeah, the dress on fire, the predated accident.
And then seeing how it allegedly adapts and just keeps going.
It's quite a narrative laid out in that complaint.
It leaves you thinking, doesn't it? What does it really mean when the very systems we rely on for truth and justice, the courts, lawyers, doctors, are allegedly manipulated like this, turned into profit centers for fraud?
It's deeply troubling. And the role of sophisticated finance in all of this, using things like securitized legal advances to legitimize it, to scale it up.
Yeah, how does that change the game? And how does it end up potentially hitting your wallet through rising costs day to day? Lots to think about. What really stands out to you after diving into all this?